Thank you very much. I'll pass on to Sir John.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I think, are going to move on to other aspects, but I just want to probe a little bit further on one or two of the answers you've already given. You've described to us the situation when you arrived in post, the extent to which various steps had already been appointed, due diligence, the approval of the King, the obtaining of agreement. Were you surprised that all of those had been completed without the vetting process having been done?
Thank you, Sir John. In the narrow sense, I wasn't surprised because I've been following the news. So when I arrived in post, I knew perfectly well that the Prime Minister had made his appointment, that it had been announced. And of course, then in my handover with Philip, he told me about agreement and the other steps that you mentioned. As I look back, whilst the Foreign Office didn't see it as I understand it at the time, I am also completely unsurprised by Simon Case's advice to the Prime Minister of November 2024 that if he wished to make a political appointment, it would be the safest course to achieve security clearance before making the announcement. And I think, had I been in post, Philip will speak for himself, maybe he did, but had I been in post at around that time, that's what I would have advised as well.
So you think it should have been obtained before those steps were taken?
I think, as others have said publicly in the last few days, this is unusual because most people appointed to ambassadorial roles already hold clearance.
Yep.
But that's a very, very sensible position to be in, and it's what I would have advised in this case too.
Thank you. And you've also described...
I should say, I mean, in the American context, Sir John, as you may well be aware, it's a particularly sensitive issue because the United States government is very hot on the clearances people hold, and so it would have been a sensible precaution.
And actually, had approval not been granted and therefore the position had been revoked after agreement had already been obtained, would that have damaged our relations with the United States, in your view?
I think it certainly would have had. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have damaged them. Yes, Sir John. I mean, the process of getting agreement was taken at quite some pace and was delivered, I think, still technically just by one working day by the Biden administration. I think if the nomination had changed after that point, the incoming administration may well have commented on it publicly, and it would, yes, have caused quite an issue in the relationship.
Right. And the dismissive approach of number 10, which you describe in your letter, you say that came from the fact that all of these steps had already been taken. Was there anything further which indicated to you that number 10 really didn't regard this as anything more than a formality which had to be completed?
To stay scrupulous, Sir John, nothing I can bear personal witness to, but certainly in my transition into the job, I was briefed obviously about the debate there had been about whether to vet at all, and that all added to a picture.
Thank you. Can I also ask a little bit more about the meeting you had on the 29th of January, which resulted in the decision to give DV clearance? You've said that you were briefed about the contents of the report by UKSV, but you didn't see it. Now, we understand, indeed, the government has published the template decision-making form in which there are 3 boxes at the end: a green one, an amber one which says approved but remain valid concerns, and the red one, the final one, clearance denied or withdrawn. Now, we are told that the tick was in the red box, clearance denied or withdrawn. Now, that doesn't seem to me borderline. Were you aware that the tick was in the red box?
I have, before the government chose to publish it, I've never seen a form like that. And so if I may make 2 points to John, I certainly do not recall the way in which the UKSV findings were presented to me as being that definitive. As I say, it was briefed to me that they were leaning against, I think is the phrase I remember. But
leaning against is not the same as the decision. We are told that the recommendation rather, from UKSV was clear. The recommendation was denial. It wasn't leaning, it was denial.
Well, you asked me what I heard in that meeting, and I'm trying to remember to the best of my ability. The other point, which I think in the way you've asked the question you understand perfectly well, but just in case, that form is consumed differently in the Foreign Office and in half a dozen other departments than it is in other parts of the system. Those are recommendations and not decisions. And so what my team will have done, I'm sure, is break that down, go through the specific issues that have led UKSV to their concern, and then make an assessment as to whether they can be managed. And that's what came to me.
Your team did that. The meeting you had was only with the Director of Security, so it would have been his officials who have broken it down, and he would have reported to you the outcome of that process.
Right.
And a note was then circulated afterwards saying what the decision was. Did that note simply say, it has been decided that Lord Mandelson is to be granted clearance, or did it say, despite the recommendation of UKSV, it has been decided?
I think that minute is not a minute I can properly discuss, Sir John. It's no longer, sadly, my document. And as I said in answer to the Chair's questions earlier, it's a minute that certainly would give you, the public, but also our adversaries, quite a strong sense of how we tried to manage that process.
But are you aware that anybody else other than you and the Director of Security who took that decision were aware outside that the decision went against the recommendation of UKSV?
So apologies for repeating myself, but I was told that it was borderline and that they were leaning against, recommending against. I don't remember anybody at any stage saying anything different to me. Certainly not about red boxes. So I'm sorry, I don't know if that answers your question. But
I'm afraid it doesn't quite.
Okay,
Essentially, my question is, you took a decision in a meeting with just one other person present. Was anybody else aware after that meeting that the decision had been to overturn or to go against the recommendation of UKSV, or was it simply reported, we've had a meeting and we've decided that he should obtain clearance?
I'm sure the Director, and sorry, I did answer the Chair earlier, I don't think it was just the Director in the meeting with me. I think there was at least one member of his team there. I'm sure they will have debriefed to some extent on the conversation, but I don't know precisely what was said.
But did you tell ministers at all, or number 10? You told them the outcome of your decision, the outcome of the meeting, but did you tell them about the recommendation made by UKSV?
No, and months later, when in the immediate aftermath of Mandelson's sacking, we were obviously thinking internally about how to respond to legitimate questions this committee and others had about that process. And my recollection is, in a way, I wasn't surprised by. The direction from number 10 was, we must make clear that these decisions were taken entirely independently of ministers and that they were not consulted other than to be told the outcome.